Welcome to the Truth Podcast. I'm your host, Hany Rambod. I'm here with my co-host, Austin, and we have very special guests here today. We have two of the founders of Generation Iron. Guys, it's really cool. I mean, Edwin, I'm not even used to even seeing you. Vlad, for sure, because Vlad's always been the front guy. But first of all, guys, welcome to Dallas. Thank you for coming. They're here for a special project. How you guys doing?
Fantastic now that we're here.
Yeah.
Amazing, man. Thank you so much for having us. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, we're really happy to be here and, appreciate, meeting with us and being here. Of course, we love being in Texas.
Already checked barbecue off the list too last night, right?
Oh
yes.
My God. Yeah. That was crazy. I'm still full. I'm still full, literally.
That's awesome. Well, you guys are working on a lot of different projects. Right now, you're in the midst of Generation Iron Persia.
Yes.
Obviously, I am Persian. But one of the things that that's my Persian accent, American Persian, West LA. That's the West LA version because they have they have different ones from different parts of the United States. But tell me a little bit about the project you're working on.
So a mutual friend of ours, actually, San, who is from Iran originally, who's a great friend of ours, part of our team. He first, actually, a few years ago, brought up Hany to my attention. Mm-hmm. And he was like, you have no idea, in Iran, the bodybuilding scene is huge. And as we started doing some research, I'm seeing all those people coming out of Iran, all these great bodybuilders. And we were like, okay, let's explore that subject more, you know what I'm saying? And that's why Generation Iron 3, the film, Hany was actually featured there. And that was the inception for what now is becoming the actual film about just the Persian bodybuilders and kind of like the movement coming out of that part of the world. And of course, you're officially a part of it now.
Well, the thing that's interesting is the fact that it's an offshoot. And when you look at the whole Generation Iron brand, did you guys ever expect it to be this big where you're going to end up having almost, how many projects is it now since the original movie?
I think we have like almost 30 films just under the Generation Iron umbrella. No, it was supposed to be just one documentary about bodybuilding. It was supposed to be like the new Pumping Iron, honestly. Pumping Iron came out at 1975, right? So it was like a big gap, obviously. Okay, something must have happened between that and the modern bodybuilding, right? So it was supposed to be just one film. And we got the Jerome Gary to do the producing with us on it, who was the original producer of Pumping Iron. So it was supposed to be just one film, and then we saw a big void in the industry for the media specifically, right? I saw the magazines were about to die out. And the digital companies weren't really making like an effort to create a media company. So we saw the void, and that's what really we kind of like created our own media company in that space.
Yeah, we were very excited to bring Arnold into the fold, and we had Mickey Rourke narrate the film, just kind of like the voice of God, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's heavy hitters,
Yeah,
especially in bodybuilding.
So we were getting, a lot of great blessings. We were being, able to work with so many great athletes, work with the Olympia. And then once that all came together, we toured the whole country. We started in New York, went down south to Florida, made our way west to the West Coast, and ended up at Gold's Gym.
All the characters, basically.
Yeah.
So Ben Pakulski was living in Florida. Branch was out here. Phil was in Denver, right? Yeah, Kai's in Brooklyn. So we were all over the place filming them. Fun times.
What was crazy about it was the fact that you guys were able to get the producer of the Olympia, which is Robin Chang, to be able to help coordinate a lot of this. Because I remember when the conversation happened, I was like, okay, when was the last time there was a movie about the Olympia? It's been a long time. And I know that there was talks about doing something for many years. But when you guys came up with this whole idea, were you guys doing anything in the bodybuilding space before this?
No. Zero connection. Zero.
None whatsoever.
None.
Yeah.
None.
So
Robin Chang was really...
But what made you want to do bodybuilding then?
We were doing a bunch of different projects at a time. We were looking for something interesting to create, interesting documentary projects. And bodybuilding, I was always like a fan of bodybuilding, but at a distance, like going to the gym and like seeing magazine covers. I only honestly knew who Jay Cutler was and Ronnie Coleman. Those are the only bodybuilders I really, because they're probably, when you go to like a supermarket, you see those magazines, right? Yeah. And it was either Jay Cutler or Ronnie Coleman, like at the forefront. So other than that, I had no experience at all, knowing anything about it. So it was a learning experience for me.
But what made you decide to do bodybuilding? A documentary about bodybuilding.
Just create a project that nobody knows about. Like bodybuilding existed, but nobody. I remember when I was doing research for the film, I went to Arnold Classic. I was 212, I think, right? And I come to Ohio, Columbus, Ohio. Never heard about this event before. And I go to the expo center, it's packed with people. Thousands of people under that one roof of the expo. And I'm like, what is going on here? Who are all these people? What is the Arnold Classic? What's going on? I'm like, so clearly there's a demand for it, but the general consumer knows nothing about it. And that gave me more ammunition to like, okay, we need to make a film about it to put it on the forefront, you know? So that was really it.
We spent months researching, studying and, bodybuilders, and we spent months with Phil, with Kai. And
yeah, but that was after you already decided to do this. My question was, did anybody have a competitive background? Did you have friends that competed? No. Or did you just feel like it was more of a business opportunity that you looked into because there was a niche?
Not a business opportunity, but just more like create a project about something cool. You know what I mean? Like something interesting. That was really it. That was a very spontaneous decision. You know what I mean? Like it was that easy.
But at that time, it was just mostly, let me go do some research. Let me go to the Arnold Classic. And then when you saw how many, especially back then, Arnold Classic was crazy.
Crazy.
I think it's eventually going to get to that point again because people are just inherently social creatures. And with us, with COVID, with everything that was going on, I feel like now you're going to be able to start seeing people wanting to get back to be able to do, meet up with people that are in the fitness world or the influencer world within our space. And you're going to start seeing that come back. But I do think that people miss being at expos. But when you went to that and you saw it, how did you decide who you wanted to follow? Was that with Robin? Did Robin Chang help with that?
He helped with that a lot. So we made a list based on the stuff that just doing our own research. And then he kind of came in and helped us out navigate. You know what I mean? Like, I remember we definitely wanted, obviously, Phil in it because he was a current Mr. Olympia. So he had to be in it. And then Kai was an interesting guy because he looked very different from everybody else. So Phil and Kai were always supposed to be in there, right? And then Robin Chang suggested putting Ben Pakulski in there because I think Ben just signed with the Weeder company at the time, and he was up and coming bodybuilder. So they suggested putting him in there. Then it was interesting because I wanted to have Dennis Wolf and Hidetada Yamagishi in it, and Victor Martinez, right? Now, they were not part of the Flex Weeder publication thing. So they didn't want to have them in it originally.
Okay.
So I kind of want to like convince them, let's have those guys in. They're very interesting stories, international presence. Victor, obviously from US, but still like he had a cool story to him, you know what I mean? But originally they didn't want him in because they were not from the part of the Flex team, so it took some convincing. So it was like, it was a negotiation and back and forth, but I thought the cast was great. It was actually 8 guys in it, right? 8, I think it was a big cast, and it was like, when you edit it down to like an hour and a half film, it was kind of challenging, actually.
It is because you have to decide. I know we shot a ton of stuff when I was there with Phil. We shot a ton of stuff, and I think I was in there for like 42 seconds, but it's okay.
He has talked about that every day.
Yeah,
since
now.
No, you weren't there for more than 40.
No, I'm kidding. I wasn't there for longer than that.
But it kept the film very fast paced. It was
did.
something that you got pulled into.
It did.
And I remember it very clearly because, about 10 years ago now, coming up on.
Next year's the 10th anniversary, I think, right?
It's crazy.
Yeah. And so that was a very influential film for me, like getting into bodybuilding. It was like me being, I'm going to expose myself here, a teenager at the time, probably about 16. It was something very like influential, but it was intense.
When did you see it?
Huh?
When did you see it?
I probably was 17.
17 when you saw
and that was when I was just getting into training and and bodybuilding and everything. So that was kind of like, I had watched Pumping Iron and then discovered that
Did you watch in the movie theater or did you watch
I don't think I did. No, I don't think at the time because I think it was just a little bit after whenever I'd kind of discovered it and everything. But I remember watching it multiple times and just
that's awesome.
Throwing on hoodies.
Derek Lungsford told me, I interviewed Derek Lungsford, right? He told me that it was also a big motivator for him. To pursue it professionally. Like I hear that a lot from
we've heard that a lot from a lot of bodybuilders.
Which is a great honor, of
and
course.
Normal people that just love fitness.
Right. So for those of you that are listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube, I think that number one, definitely you want to see it. Yeah. It's great. It is a docudrama. And there's a documentary aspect to it. And the drama aspect of it is the fact that There was a little bit of embellishment. It wasn't one.
That's a strong word.
So let's talk about
the Truth Podcast.
Yeah, it's called the Truth Podcast. And the truth was that it wasn't a 1 point difference between Kai and Phil, even though they made it sound like it was.
That was actually announced on the stage.
No, but not for his division. That was 1 point. That was in the 202. It was a 1 point. Yes, it was. But if you go look at the scorecards, it was straight firsts for Phil.
That's for 2013, right?
I believe so.
No, 12.
No, 12. Whenever you guys were doing
right. Okay,
thing.
12. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we go back and look at it, we'll get Tim to pull up the scorecard. That's going to be going through and editing. But I think that was one of the things. It was building him up, and I think that the other thing about it was the fact that Kai, when you guys built the story, it was him being the underdog.
Sure.
He's always been the underdog. You guys just released the Kai film, which by the way, I thought that came out really well. But I think it should have been Kai still versus Phil, because half of the film was about his chasing Phil. It was
a good point. Actually, that's one of the things we've been talking about. Obviously, Phil has been a huge part of Kai's career, right? And vice versa. I mean, that's one of the biggest rivalries of all time.
They even just had some beef recently on Muscle Beach. I don't know if y'all saw that of Phil going.
Was that beef or was that just Phil being Phil?
I was like,
Phil was at Muscle Beach a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but he was there for
Jim Shark.
Yeah. And so they had an anniversary and they had Phil there, and Kai was there. And was Kai also there for Jim Shark?
I think I saw Kai was there with Rain or something.
Yeah, there was a Rain promotion.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And so I think that what ended up happening was they saw each other across the parking lot.
There was a fence there.
There was a fence between There's a fence between them, and then they were waving at each other, and then Kai, started talking a little bit, and Phil started responding, and Phil started putting, he started throwing up the 5, 6, 7, throwing it back at Kai. But I think they become close through the years, and I feel like that they've always respected one another, now more so than ever, because Kai helped push Phil, because obviously Phil always wanted to continue to stay Mr. Olympia. So he was going to do whatever he could, the training, the nutrition, everything, making sure to cross the T's and dot the I's. And what it looked like at the time was very, very, it wasn't just a rivalry. It was blood, sweat, tears. It was a war. And a lot of people thought that, they keep asking me, was the heads flip real? Was that, or was it made up? And I feel that, of course, everybody wanted it to be a little bit more edgy, but I don't think anybody expected it to almost break out to be a fight on stage.
Yeah, that was a tipping point. Like, okay, we have to stop this now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, you hear Steve Weinberger say, come on, guys, stop it, and he had to stop it, what was going on at the time. But when you put together this whole thought process about this docudrama, again, the documentary is just following through the 2012 Mr. Olympia competition and bringing in not just Phil and Kai, but you have Rolly Winkler and Grandma.
There you go. Okay. That's not a great character, actually. Yeah?
Yes, and I feel that nobody knew who Grandma was until that point. And Grandma was Rolly's trainer at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that it brought a cool spotlight on her. Yeah. Haven't seen her around recently.
Where's Grandma?
I don't know.
If anybody knows, I love the podcast. Where is Grandma?
So if anybody knows, please put it in the comments below here on YouTube. Please. And because we want to hear your feedback on all of this.
Yeah.
And I feel like what has happened, it's become this cultural phenomenon of Generation Iron, where whether you love it or hate it, when you look at it, I only realized how much impact it created when I was in the mall with Phil Heath. And we were in San Jose. He came to visit to train. And it was right after the movie had come out. And we were walking into a Foot Locker. Trying to get the update on the Jordans, right? The new colorway drop. Actually, at the time, I was buying a lot of Kobe's, and
it was actually an Auntie Anne's pretzel stand.
No, I think I was already gluten free by then. But what happened was, one of the workers came up to me and says, "Hey, I know who you are. You come in here and shop. I don't like the guy that you train."
Really?
And the guy that I train is Phil Heath, and he's standing next to me. And I go, "What do you mean?" So she said, "I saw the movie, and he comes across as, not a good guy. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, yeah, the other guy, the one with the dreadlocks, I feel so bad for him. And I kept thinking to myself, well, he doesn't sleep on a 3-inch mattress, and, and he's not at that point right now. He used to be a bit of that, but I think that it really villainized Phil. And I was really, really upset about it. And I'll never forget this. I told Phil, I go, wow, I wish, and we talked about this last night. I said, I wish you had some kind of final cut, because I really felt that it created that villain in him. And I felt like it was unjust because people didn't realize he was playing a role in that. He really tried to be the Arnold for whatever reason. Whoever told him, hey, whether it's part of the team or not, said, we really kind of want you to build up this kind of Arnold type of persona, is what I think ended up happening. And it's those things that happened on that video, on that first movie, that people were like, wow, I want Kai to be Rocky and win the underdog story, where the original Rocky, he was an underdog. And Phil was like the Black Drago. Whatever you want to kind of analogy you want to use.
But Phil only got upset after he saw maybe some reactions, because when the film came out at first, we had 2 huge premieres. I think you were possibly
I was in. You were
both of them, right?
I believe so. I was at least at one of them. I think I was in New York too.
New York one, and then LA one, Chinese theater actually.
Yeah.
And the reactions was great. He was very happy about everything. And then he went on to win the Olympia 2013, because the movie came out in 2013.
Right.
And he was super happy. Then I flew.
It was before the Olympia, I believe, right? Or
it was both premieres right before the Olympia.
So at the Orleans that year, I believe.
Yeah. And then he went to Vegas, won another Olympia.
Right.
And then a couple of months later, when the DVD was, back then it was a DVD, right? Yeah. So I flew to Denver to meet him we were doing DVD commentary. And that's when he was like, listen, man, I'm getting so much hate from people. And I was like, what do you care? You're the champion. Like, you're like Mayweather. Like, think about Mayweather. You know how much hate he gets? Like, what do you care? And he was like, well, I care, So I'm like, I understand. But at the same time, Phil got a lot of flack from people over the years, I feel like. It wasn't just from that one film. Over the years, people maybe take what he says as being arrogant. To me, it's just confidence, personally. I don't see anything like, I don't understand why people complain about him. You're a champion, you're a confident champion. Like, what? You shouldn't hold back. I mean, right? Do you think he should have ever held back in general? Not just in the film, but I mean in general. Like, why hold back?
No, I don't think it was about holding back. I think what it ended up happening, and I think this is a good question for Phil at some point, but in my opinion, in my eyes, I felt what happened was he ended up having to deal with so much flack because people thought that was him, when he felt like he was playing a role and he was trying to build up the movie and make it better, that people were like, well, no, that's just you. And just like they were trying to, when I say they, actually, you guys were trying to create what Kai had come from and highlighted that, even though he had means at the time, right? He wasn't living in that apartment that you guys put him in.
Well, that's where he said he was like, he brought us there to, you know what I mean? He brought there.
Yeah, but he brought you there to film. He didn't bring you there because that's where he was living. But in the movie, it was almost like this was where he came from.
Well, he still had that apartment. He was still in that apartment. As far as, I don't know if he had I'm sure he had other apartments or other homes, but he was still in that apartment. He, did all his artwork in that apartment. He still had his bed in that apartment. He would still walk to the fish market with us to buy fish and make fish with 95 degree weather with a hoodie on. I mean, that was all.
You would wear 3 hoodies and it'd be 100 degrees.
Right. I mean, we just saw him in Boca Raton and he was still wearing a hoodie.
Ultimately with
the same hoodie,
the hoodie in 95 degree weather, so.
With a lot more humidity.
Ultimately, it's not like we wrote the script. Right. Here, Phil. Here, Kai. Here, Branch. You guys are actors. It wasn't like that. It was like, we adjusted everybody's personality to the story. You know what I mean? So it's like, whatever your strongest attributes are, this was going to end up on the screen after we spent filming with you for like a few weeks. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that. And then, of course, we did some adjustments as we were filming it to make it more interesting. You know what I mean? Like ask a question. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And of course, they gave strong reactions sometimes. And of course, when you give a strong reaction, it will most likely end up in the film. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
it's a strong point of the conversation. You know?
I think part of me also wonders how much it is depending on the reactions that people had of who you identify with most and how your personality clicks with those kinds of people. Because personally, I don't know if he'll watch this or not, but personally, I was never a Kai person. I just never have been. I don't know what it was specifically. I can admire his physique, hard work, and his posing and everything. But to me, it was more like, all right, like he's the champ. He's at the top. He's confident. He knows he can go back and win. All of those things. I think that, like, for me personally, I got hyped up from that. It was like not necessarily the super hunkered down. I can see the story and everything going along with it, but I personally, coming out of that, actually never really viewed Phil like that. And then I met him several times afterwards, and he was always great when I met him in person and everything. But I think that for me personally, it was maybe how each person just identified with certain characters. And of course, I will say, like you said, there's going to be more of a leaning towards the underdog.
Always underdog, always.
That's just how it's going to be. And I can appreciate that too. But in those settings and stuff, even just how Kai talked a little bit, I was like, I just didn't click with him personally.
Yeah, but Kai said a lot of mean things too.
Yeah.
He said, I don't eat gifts. Do you remember those quotes
Yes.
in the film?
Yeah.
They all talked about each other, because if it wasn't a competitive conversation, why would we want to watch this?
I think it's just more easy to attack the top.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the point.
It's just like
If
you're
he's on top,
punching
yeah,
up, you're
of
going
course.
after it. So like,
100%.
that's just my thought process.
Well, and I think that now, especially now when you fast forward almost 10 years and you see what legacy each of the athletes have created, you go, well, Phil, was he talking shit or was he just talking the truth? Where his truth was that I am confident I'm going to go out there and show you the work. I may have some genetic gifts, but at that level, everybody does. It's a matter of how you execute on the plan and make sure that you're able to turn around and make a better package year after year after year. And he was the first internet sensation in bodybuilding. Like, he had to deal with, when I'm talking about in the bodybuilding world of Mr. Olympias, he was the first Mr. Olympia who had to deal with Instagram.
I think you're 100% right.
Exactly.
100%. I mean, for us, Phil always came across very confident. He came across as a champion, as a respected champion, with someone that people had looked up to. And we saw him as someone that is going to be very hard to beat. But you're 100% right. He's the first Olympian who had to go through the social media kind of, or the shift, right? And I think, that movie was eminent of that, and huge example of how everything has shifted in just to social media and everything that's happening now, right?
Well, and I almost wonder, just putting it out there, it's just a quick sidestep though, if like Bumstead says a lot of similar things. Bumstead says that like the next Mr. Olympian Classic will be when I retire. Like, he puts a lot of very confident things out there, but people, there's not really, and that's because he's just like, in my opinion, just so far ahead that it's most of the time it's who's competing for second. And there are some up and comers and things, just in my opinion. But like, I wonder if there was somebody who potentially could be that underdog rising, if he would be potentially viewed different. But in my opinion, he says a lot of those things and nobody even thinks anything of it. It's just, he's confident he's going to keep winning.
I don't see anything wrong with that. Like, I don't see, why be upset at that? Let him talk. Like, let him say he's the best.
Well, I'm sure the Olympia promoters would love that too. They would love people.
Why not?
Absolutely, because it builds drama.
Right.
And when you have confrontation, it creates that angst to want to watch it. You say, I want to go see this. It's almost like
I kind of want more of that, because we don't have a lot of that right now.
We need that.
Yeah, we got Blessing of Woodaboo running around.
You took the words right out. Right when I heard that, I go, Blessing.
Blessing's just yelling at every single person in the top dogs. There's not really a lot of that. Everybody's just, we're just going to compete.
Because people got too sensitive, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they don't want to offend anybody.
And they also, I think, bringing it back to the Generation Iron and Phil Heath, they don't want to be the villain, because they don't want to be villainized. They don't want to be the one that's considered to be arrogant versus confident. Because now I think it's starting to come back full circle, because as Phil has done more interviews and he's done podcasts, he's gone on tons of mainstream podcasts that are getting millions of views. What's happening now is they're saying, well, that was just his mentality. Wow, what a beast. They appreciate it more now. But when he was doing it, it wasn't so appreciated.
Yeah.
It was almost like, oh man, we want you. When a certain team wins, let's just say the Lakers, and they win 1, 2, 3. Now all of a sudden people want a new champ.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of tired of seeing the same person win. And I feel that after 2, 3, 4, now all of a sudden that momentum train tends to shift. And the thing that just kind of sucked was that with Phil, he had it, and then it shifted so fast because as soon as the movie came out, it was like, wow, he was the golden boy. It was the guy with the green eyes, and he was like, he's educated, he's college educated, he was this, he was that. He had so many different things going for him, and then all of a sudden it just shifted, and it just happened to be right with that movie hit. And I just think that it became a hard stop. And when that happened, I think that it's when the hero becomes the villain, but now is becoming the hero again, because you realize all of the accomplishments and all the things. Because when you sit down and you look at all the different Machiavelli motivation videos, you look at all of those things, you sit down and you say, well, if all of these other people were so good, how come they're not making as many videos about them? Where are their pictures? Where are their iconic 2009 Jay Cutler shots? Where are the 2011 Phil Heath, 2013 Phil Heath? You got some really good stuff with Kai. You have some good with some other athletes, but some of these other ones are just, they're not really there in that mentality of what it took. So now I think it's coming back a little bit more full circle for him. Do
you think Phil is top 5 of all time? I ask that question a lot when I
absolutely
top
absolutely
5.
Yes,
I think 100%. Objectively, right? Objectively speaking,
100%. He's the most complete Mr. Olympia that there was out there. So I think
I would say yes.
If it was the most complete. Now, was there other ones like Ronnie Coleman, who's not only a good friend of mine, I'm a huge fan of just in regards to his physique, but he had knockout shots. But was he as complete as Phil? No. I think that Phil was more complete. Was he as 3D as Phil? No. But was he crazy nasty? That's why they called him the Big Nasty. He was crazy. Like, he had some crazy knockout shots. His back double bicep was insane. His, he had so many different body parts that.
That's why I say top 5. Top 5. I feel like it's,
And I think you can put up to question a lot of different things. Sure. But I think that unbiasedly, top 5, absolutely. I think Phil Heath. I mean, this won 7 Olympia titles. It says it all by itself. But I think that if you look at the completeness and that 3D physique, now you're starting to appreciate it more because you're seeing, going, wow. When's that kind of roundness and fullness and separation and all of those things where you have calves and arms and all of those things that Arnold would talk about when you do a front double bicep and your arms are supposed to match those calves and your separation in your hamstring should match the separation of your quads and your back should be like super separated, and as my good friend Melvin Anthony back in the day used to say, it just looks lumpy as hell. And so those things are just, not everybody has those combinations of skin texture to fullness to separation. But taking it to the rest of these guys that were really, really good bodybuilders as well, Branch Warren. I know the Branch Warren, this scene that keeps keep coming up, him falling off the horse, right? I know that wasn't planned.
Definitely not planned. I did not write that.
Vlad was off to the side tossing something in front of the horse.
I think he threw it like a firecracker inside the horse to go and get a great shot.
No, that was definitely it wasn't planned at all. I mean, we were just there shooting and documenting Branch and his lifestyle and beautiful home, beautiful estate, and then that ended up happening. He got back up, he got back into the gym, he got better, he recovered, and he competed. And we thought that was a really cool dynamic to the story. And I think that added a lot of great, shots, great for the picture itself. I think it was great. People have told us, we love the fact that Branch got off, got back up and got
back on that horse.
Literally,
literally, yeah.
So, so we see a lot of that too,
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Dennis Wolf. That was hard to watch.
Whoa. What do you mean?
That was hard to watch.
What do you mean?
Those acting, the lessons in the movie, the acting pieces.
Yeah.
Why was it hard to watch?
Because it was a little bit painful.
What are you saying? You didn't like his acting?
No.
Yeah, what do you mean?
And I think Dennis Wolf is an amazing person, amazing bodybuilder. But I think that watching that, I mean, what's going on in your head? Watching that piece with him trying out for, I believe it was a movie role, wasn't it? Was it a movie or was it
an audition?
It was an audition. Okay. So talk to me about that, with the whole situation, with all the stuff that you shot with him. That was something that stood out to you, obviously, where you left it in the movie.
Yeah, because Dennis Wolf is kind of like, he was admired by Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Who became an actor. I was a bodybuilder, became an actor. So he wanted to follow the footsteps of Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I said, there's an audition in LA. Would you want to attend? I said, let's do it. We took actually a jet from Vegas to LA and got into the audition. And that's what you saw.
Do you know what he was auditioning for?
Some kind of a film, independent film, I think. I think it was a Nickelodeon film.
Okay.
Something about some kind of a cadets going to the army. He was a drill sergeant. There you go. I actually remember that.
That's the part that you remember.
Wow, that's good. Impressive.
Yeah,
I didn't.
I remember it now. Yeah.
Did he get it or any piece?
No.
I think all of this prompts a question for me. Do you think that obviously you hit a very, very specific moment? All of these things happened in the film, the rivalries, branch, the audition, all these things came together
Grandma.
for such, and grandma, all these things came together. Do you feel like you could make, like, say right now, this exact Olympia, do you think that kind of film would have the same impact based on the characters we have involved right now?
That's a great question. Yeah. That's probably one of the best questions we've been ever asked, to be honest. The thing about filmmaking is it's like sometimes it's a perfect storm.
Yeah.
And that's what Generation Iron was. Filmmaking has a lot to do with obviously having skill. You know, Vlad as a documentarian has been instrumental for all of our films. However, some films, when Generation Iron, are produced, you have like this perfect, stew of all these things going on at the same time, and you get a little lucky with filmmaking.
It's like lightning in the
story. Yeah, even features, the same concept. So not every director is going to have the same success on every film.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, there's probably no way to redo that again a second time. Perhaps it will be special in its own way, but very different and unique.
Yeah, I don't know.
Are you going to do anything special for the 10-year anniversary?
We have so many films in production right now, so I don't know if we're going to do something special for this one specifically, but I guess we still got some time.
Yeah, we started to talk about doing a new version of 10-year anniversary edition, and I think that's something that we can try to do. And we've been talking to some of the folks across bodybuilding and also Olympia as well, who have been very supportive, by the way, on everything, and we'd love to do something.
Was that your number one movie in regards to the most financial success that was out there?
Actually, Generation Iron 2, I think it did better than Generation Iron 1. And what's interesting about it is that, because we weren't starting from scratch, you had a fan base already in it. And a lot of people later said that they like Generation Iron 2 better than Generation Iron 1. And it's because different characters were in it as well, and it wasn't just about competing, We had some great characters in the second one as well. I'm not saying...
I can't remember the second one, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was...
I know I saw it, but I don't... Who was in it?
It was actually... It would follow competitive bodybuilders, like in the 212 divisions, like Hiratada was in it.
Okay.
Ahmad Ashkanani from Kuwait. And then introduced like some viral stars, like Rich Piana was in it. And Colin Von Moger was in it.
Yeah, okay. And I remember that.
The new generation of bodybuilders.
Yeah, so once we did that, obviously Rich Piana, he passed away, but we had Rich Piana, Colin Von Moger. This was like a huge introduction right around the time that a lot of people did not know who these guys were. People knew who Rich Piana was.
Right.
But social media exploded at that time, basically.
That's where it was like in the cusp of like social media.
Because that was 15 or what was that?
Yeah, it was around 2015, late 2015, around there.
Yep.
Yeah. And that movie did really, really well because it had, Generation Iron 1 already had a lot of ancillary following across, online, digital, movies, and all that. Yeah. And then this movie went really far. We went internationally, we went overseas, we went to Kuwait, and we were able to get a lot of attention for that film.
And actually, feedback was great. Honestly, the feedback, because the thing is like, Generation Iron 1, everybody compares it to Pumping Iron. I feel like actually people appreciate Generation Iron first film now more because people crave that type of content in bodybuilding and it just doesn't exist, But I feel like at first it was like everybody's comparing it to, they had Arnold and Lou Ferrigno and it's like, you don't have the same characters. So it was like, whatever, But the second Generation Iron got great feedback, Jay Cutler was in the second one. Kai Green, like a lot of great people.
Yeah. The first one did really well because we were able to go out with the film theatrically, right? So it's like, it's very rare you'll see a bodybuilding movie probably ever again in a theater unless, I don't know. It's hard to do.
We do it again.
So we were pulling in like late nights, 3:00 in the morning, talking to AMC, Regal, Cinemark, put this movie in, like convincing exhibitors to put the film in the actual theater.
Yeah, we had it in the local AMC that wasn't far from the Evogen headquarters. It was the AMC. I can't remember how many seats we had, but we ended up renting out the whole theater.
Wow.
And I had a bunch of friends people that wanted to come and watch it. So I ended up renting it out. Awesome. And when I did that, I'd obviously already seen it, but I was really trying to get the feedback from the people that not only that were bodybuilding fans that watched it, because they thought it was really entertaining. They thought it was really good. They felt that the people that knew some of the characters, like they knew Phil or whatnot, they go, oh, it's a little bit different. So it doesn't seem like, the real Phil or whatnot. But they said that it was very entertaining. And the people that followed it at the time, I think you got really good feedback. I think Rotten Tomatoes gave you guys some
yeah, we were able, we were very thankful. The feedback was amazing. We got great reviews from Washington Post. From every major trade. We were able to bring in Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Huffington Post, all these major trades, right, to cover bodybuilding in the actual, film. And we got tremendous feedback and reviews. And that's why Rotten Tomatoes was such a great, well-reviewed.
Yeah, obviously Rotten Tomatoes helps a lot with any movie role.
And it was fully independent. The movie was fully independent. So we're booking all the theaters, contacting reporters, is everything that fully independently.
Yeah.
On that note, when you had put the film out and everything, was there a specific moment where you had kind of talked about how it's gone on to so many other films, done so many other things since? Was there a specific moment right after it dropped where you were like, this could be something bigger, where this could turn into something?
So first week it came out, the movie was, I think, top 5 highest grossing documentary at the box office.
Wow.
Actually, it was top 5 documentary at the box office in 2013.
Yeah.
That weekend, it was, for the first 3-4 weekends that it was out, it was number 1 documentary at the box office. And at that moment, we realized this is, obviously a great film, and we've had a great reception for it. And we wanted to continue creating media and film in the bodybuilding and fitness industry. And we've been very thankful. We have all these great relationships with all these theater exhibitors and streaming outlets. And we want to continue to produce amazing content in the fitness and bodybuilding space, because you see a lot of content on social media, but you don't see a lot of long form captivating.
It's completely different. Making a long form versus social media is completely different. And it's one of those things also, we have to do so much. It's very difficult what we do. It's not easy. You know what I'm saying? Like you would think.
You mean making a movie is not hard?
Are you kidding me? Not just making a film.
I just before I forget, because I know this is something I was going to ask you. Can you tell me how much that cost to make?
Which one?
The first one.
The first one was actually expensive.
Right. I know it wasn't cheap. That's why it was like.
It was up there upwards of $1 million, basically.
That's what I said. Yeah, it's $1
million
combined. Right.
Yeah, it's
because you have so much different production costs. And, and even though everybody didn't get paid on it per se, because it wasn't really hey, we're going to pay you for this role.
Right.
And again, stop me and tell me if I'm wrong, but it was really more amount of the production as well, production and post-production, all of those things along with travel. It just costs.
It racks up very, very.
It was astronomical. We were in a position where we would make it break, right? Because we had no idea what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Our impression.
Do you have investors? Do you have when you guys do projects like this?
Well, it's our own. It's investors. It's because we do a lot of different films and we structure different deals differently with different people. But I was trying to say is that basically, like making a film is difficult enough.
Okay.
But then you have to get it to the big platforms to carry the film. And we have to educate them constantly what this is all about. You would think you're making a movie about Ronnie Coleman, right? He's obviously, if you know bodybuilding, he's the biggest, bodybuilder of all times, right? Like rating-wise. But Netflix doesn't know who he is. They just don't, and they don't care. So you have to educate them who Ronnie Coleman is, why he should be on this platform.
So you're having meetings with them,
of course, and we have to convince them,
right?
Convince them why this film is important for the not just for bodybuilders, but for people that want to learn about bodybuilding and just learn about great athletes. And it's like that all the time. It's not. So it's never easy.
It's two things. Yeah, it's convincing, and a lot. Obviously, it's making sure that the quality and it actually ties up to a great film. So, you have a movie of 3 acts, right? 3 acts, whether it's a documentary or feature, and then you have the component where you have to, introduce the film, convince them, have them learn about the character. And I remember like yesterday we were at, Netflix's office convincing them of, for them to take a look at the Ronnie film and having them.
Which one? The one that you guys had?
For Ronnie, the Ronnie Coleman film. And then,
so when you did the Ronnie Coleman film, I think it's called The King?
The King.
Ronnie Coleman, The King, yeah.
Right. So I saw it right when it first came out. I think you guys did a great job on it. Was he happy with it?
With the film?
Yes.
From what I understand, yeah.
Yeah. When you did that film, it became immensely popular for him because people that didn't know who Ronnie Coleman was were like, wow, that's so different. This guy is in a wheelchair. He's disabled to this degree, to this point, and he's willing to go do it all over again. And telling that story about him and what he thought, and he would do this whole process all over again, was mind-blowing because many people come up to me even to this day, even bodybuilders, and go, God, I'm sure he regrets that. And I go, no, he doesn't. He'd do it all over again. And he says it day in, day out.
Yeah, we asked him that question, I think, a couple of times in the film. And he would say he would do it all over again.
And I don't think it's changed at all.
Yeah.
I think Ronnie Coleman is just he's wired differently. And that's what made him who he was. And that's why he trained the way he did. And I think that when you guys focused on being able to create a little bit of that story, that he was not only one of the best, if not the best bodybuilder of all time, is that he was able to turn around and even through these injuries, still keep everything positive. And I really thought that movie, did it do well in the box office or at least in sales?
Yeah, that movie, from what I understood, the folks at Netflix said that it did really well. It's gotten a lot of views. A lot of people have tuned in.
But don't you guys, doesn't that help you financially when it does well on Netflix? Or is it one of those things where it's just once you give it to them, you no longer get paid on how many times they view it? Because I don't know how any of that works.
So Netflix is essentially like a cable subscription platform, right? So it's in other words, you see HBO, you see Showtime, you see Hulu. Mm-hmm. Those are subscription platforms. In other words, they have their subscribers, and essentially, when you're producing content or you're a distributor, they'll take on films for a license or for an original fee. So sometimes it's basically like a flat fee. Okay. Not necessarily like transactional, like Apple Movies or Google Play or Amazon On Demand, where you pay or rent a film.
That's where Kai's at right now.
Correct.
The Kai movie.
Yeah, correct.
Right. So if you want to go watch Kai right now, somebody who's listening to this podcast can go and listen and download it, and they'll pay to be able to watch it.
Correct.
And then they can either rent it or buy it. Do they get to do both options?
On some platforms right now, most of them are purchase only, but there's different windows. So that, and then you have AVOD that comes in with ad supported, platforms like Tubi and other ones that, where you watch a film with an ad, or YouTube as well. So that's how we kind of structure our films. Ultimately it depends on the release dates, on when we're releasing, and how we're releasing a title, but we like to have a theatrical component for every film. Okay. Yeah.
And when you were doing that with the Ronnie film, if it blows up, if you're doing a flat rate in the very beginning, it doesn't get paid on performance, right? At that point, it's
whatever you...
Yeah, it doesn't.
On Netflix specifically?
Yeah, Netflix specifically. Because I'm just wondering, is there anything built into those contracts on the back end that says if this thing becomes the next blockbuster, right? Like it just goes completely crazy viral. Right. And is there anything that helps with being able to compensate you guys for that? Or
you negotiate whatever you negotiate, because they're taking a risk too. What if it doesn't? You know what I mean? Like let's say you sign an athlete, right? Mm-hmm. You do a specific amount of whatever, right? It can pay off or may not pay off, but you're still taking a risk as a business. Right. Like it's like investing into let's say we invest into 5 films. Only one becomes financially great. The other 2 break even and the other one flops.
Okay.
So we got to take a loss on the one to flop and hopefully make the rest from the biggest one. So it's like you kind of
your cost averaging is just like stock.
Exactly.
You buy 5 different stocks. One's a turd, the other 2 are flat, and then one just takes off. And then
which is what you see now at Netflix. They've taken on a lot of movies. Mm-hmm. They've paid a lot of money for certain movies that have underperformed. And it reflects in their stock price, and you see it now. So
hopefully Ronnie Coleman will save them.
It's the next Squid Game. It's going to just surpass everything.
We got to do that for bodybuilding. Oh shit! Yeah, it's like front double bicep. We're going to go ahead and try to.
But it's tough. It's tough. Getting the bodybuilding to these platforms is tough. But we're not giving up. We're going to keep going. Hopefully, you make more.
Yeah, we've done a lot of great content. I mean, we did the C.T. Fletcher film as well. We did a movie.
Column too, right?
Callum Von Moger on Broken. Yeah, we did a film with UFC and Bellator called The Hurt Business as well. Which
I think that's our best film. I don't know if you've seen it.
No.
It was on Netflix also. I don't think it's on Netflix right now.
Yeah, it was with Ronda Rousey, John Jones, George St. Pierre.
That was like 4 or 5 years ago?
Right.
Yeah,
and then we had, we worked with Kevin Costner on that movie, which was great.
Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
He narrated it.
Yeah.
So
the film.
You get somebody like him. I know Mickey Rourke is a bodybuilding fan. I believe he trains at Gold's Venice. And he followed it. Kevin Costner, is he an MMA fan?
He's a huge MMA fan.
Huge MMA fan. Yeah. So that's one of the things that we've been able to kind of been very lucky to bring to bodybuilding as well, as being able to kind of bridge the gap between Hollywood and mainstream. And we know that that's the best way to get the best exposure for the sport and for the leagues. And we've been able to do that on a variety of our films, similar to UFC and Bellator. And then, obviously working with guys like CT and Callum Von Moger and, bringing mainstream appeal to athletes helps our projects grow as well, and vice versa. And we've been able to kind of bring agency support, mainstream outlet support from, news outlets to trades, Hollywood Reporter covering the movie. So those things help.
And you guys always obviously have a very, strong lineup of people who have been in the films. Would you guys say that there is or has been a person that you've had your sights set on, but you have not yet or don't have a project in the works with? Like if you had a dream person.
This guy right here. Okay. He's a hard negotiator.
I'm going to go ahead.
He's a hard negotiator.
Well played. Well played.
I'm going to go ahead and pay your $100 for saying that later. Making me feel all warm and fuzzy.
As soon as the camera pans to me, there's just a little handoff. Okay, good job.
That's right. It is interesting to say that with these different characters that are bodybuilders, but we're in such a subjective sport. Yeah. Would you see anybody else? I guess I'm thinking to myself right now, Generation Iron has created its own brand, right? You have your own Instagram channel that does quite well. You have different offshoots of it because I know that the Generation Iron Persia, which is Esson, you have, I believe, Brazil.
Correct. Yeah.
You have some different heavy hitters in there, the different markets. Where do you see your brand going? Are you just going to continue to keep doing these documentaries and these different types of movies, or do you see yourselves doing other things as well?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I'll start off. I mean, Generation Iron has become after Generation Iron, we realized it was a huge opportunity to grow as a publishing entity as well. So what we did was we invested into it today as a digital media platform for bodybuilding, strength sports, fitness, and just a normal person wants to get into shape. And the movie side of our business is continuing to be at the forefront because it's what, number one, we love to do. And it's obviously our biggest source of revenue. But we've also been able to grow on an editorial side. So now we have amazing writers, contributors, doctors, nutritionists that contribute to Generation Iron, providing, searchable content online. And SEO has become a big part of that, where, you're Googling or you're looking for workouts or nutrition or guidance, and will pop up on Google. And those are things that we're prioritizing right now as a business. And we've been growing the brand internationally as well to be able to create, quick searchable content online. And then also being able to expand that with our socials has been instrumental with video, working with athletes to, bring more awareness to content. And throughout the course of the last couple of years, we've taken on new brands as well. We did a movie called Strength Wars, it's a brand that we took on as well, from Germany originally. And we took on which has over 1 million YouTube subscribers.
Wow.
We took on a brand as well that we took on, I think, a few years ago called Gym Fuckery, which is a Jim Fails brand.
I did see that. You guys
seen Gym Fuckery?
Yeah. So that's you guys.
So we own that as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought it was just a bunch of, random dudes getting filmed dumbbells on
It's a great platform. It's a user-generated content platform.
Okay.
You'd be surprised. I mean, everybody, probably not surprised, but everybody wants to go viral. Yeah. A lot of people out there want to go viral, so they submit their videos.
They submit their videos officially.
Right.
Yeah.
And we end up we have a team that
It's not like we'll go looking for them. They actually submitted.
they submit the videos, and
Did Bradley Martin submit the one of him dropping a girl on his face?
No, he didn't.
Oh, okay, got it.
And speaking of Bradley Martin, aren't you doing something with him?
yeah. So we're working on a Bradley Martin film.
Okay.
So we're I would say almost done with it. We're going into post. We're
Do you
very
have that
excited about
piece?
that.
Did you get that from him with him dropping?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Actually, we just saw him. He had stitches in his mouth.
There's 10 of them, right?
yeah,
Stitches, yeah.
10 or 13 or something like that.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, if you don't follow Bradley Martin, he does a lot of strength movements with
Women.
Yeah. And so he'll bench press women. He'll do all these different things where they'll grab the bar on each side or leg press them or do whatever. And in this particular instance, he had a plate and the girl was sitting, I believe, on her standing on the plate. And then she slipped and then the plate slipped out of his hand and hit him in the face. And I think, how many stitches did he end up getting?
I think about 10 or 13 or something.
Yeah, he's lucky he didn't knock all his teeth out.
Oh, yeah.
I actually read about it right before getting on this podcast on a page called Generation Iron.
I thought it was Jim Fucker.
I love that page. I mean, we have a lot of fun with that page. I mean, it's people. I mean, obviously, we don't want to see people get hurt, but there's people putting on.
There's a lot
videos.
of people that want to see people get hurt. Let's just be honest here. This is social media.
We've been very fortunate to work on that platform, and we now work a lot. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the show Ridiculousness on MTV.
No, I haven't.
Rob Dyrdek.
Yeah.
Pronounce his last name.
Yep. So we work a lot with Viacom.
Okay.
And they love the Jim Fuckery content.
They do.
They license it all the time, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, so we do that's a different component of our business. So that's actually growing a lot as well. But we have still the film is still a big part of our business, number one part of our business. And then
we love film. That's something that I don't want to stop doing ever. And that's what we're going to keep going.
But 5 years from now, I mean, from a publishing standpoint, we want to be at the forefront of everything that's fitness, bodybuilding, strength sports.
But you're not doing any actual magazines, right? You're not doing
No, physical, digital. Like
all digital.
GenerationIron.com is basically a digital magazine.
Yeah. So we've grown from really on less than 500,000 readers monthly to over 2 million readers monthly on GenerationIron.com.
And they're not just looking for obituaries?
No.
Oh my God.
Because that's the thing. I mean, I'll be honest with you. When I see a post from you guys on IG, it scares the shit out of me.
A lot of people say the same thing, but people always, it's true. I mean, people always focus on the negative stuff, but they were putting out so many good, informative content out there.
There was a time where almost every other week someone was dying.
Yeah, it was rough.
But that's not our fault. I mean, there's reporting on it,
I know it's not your fault, but I think that people were looking at it almost like an obituary notice.
Sure.
And what happened was, there were so many of them that when you guys were reporting it, that when you would open it up, you just you pray that it's like, okay,
no,
you almost knew when you saw a name and there was some kind of tragic headline, you go, oh shit, someone died.
Yeah. It's definitely not something that was, it's something we were prepared for. Our writers are dedicated to putting out, news as well as editorial functional training articles, so a lot of that stuff gets put out there, but all these trades are sharing the same information, all these outlets are sharing the same information as well, but the way Generation Iron puts out its content as a media platform, it comes across like okay, who's next, right? And that's not obviously what we all want to go through or feel as well, or see or read about on a daily basis.
Do you guys feel like you're the TMZ of bodybuilding?
No.
We've gotten that all the time. I mean, I don't know. Let Vlad answer the question.
I don't feel like that. You feel like we are?
No, I think that I think that there is an instance where there's some pieces of that can come through when it comes to notices when somebody passes away. And that feels like that a bit.
I mean, TMZ follow people like who comes out of this restaurant, or it's like something like very celebrity driven. You know what I mean? Like, first of all, TMZ is a great company. I don't know what's wrong with them. A huge corporation at this point, right? But anyway, they focus on more like, this lady has this bag or some kind of a gossip story. You know what I mean? Like, reporting on somebody's dying is not the same necessarily, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that reporting on whose shaker cup someone's holding on or something like that.
That would have been like a team.
That would have been.
Hany's gold-plated shaker cup.
That's right. It was in the hands of this other athlete. But in regards to the future right now, the thing that you came here for was Generation Iron Persia. I want to go a little bit more into detail about that. there's Hany Chopin. I think you guys are focusing on his 2018 going into 2019 doing the Olympia. I know that. Looking at the athletes, we have some amazing athletes from Iran that don't get to come here because of the limitations of their passport. I feel that hopefully someday we'll be able to see how much talent is coming out of Iran. Also, the other thing that I realize too, as the more I just think about this and the more I connect with the Iranian fans, I think that they're the biggest bodybuilding fans in the entire world for bodybuilding. I think if you had to rank, and you guys let me know if you think that this is on point or not, but if you rank bodybuilding in terms of sports within Iran, I think it's in the top 5. Because if you look at other sports, you don't see those kinds of reactions where people are coming to the airport to put you on their shoulders. I mean, as many as Olympias as Ronnie won, nobody was coming into DFW after he would win from Dallas and then say, hey, let's go ahead and do this. They don't do that for even some of the top, maybe in the NFL, maybe after they win,
Olympics,
some people, or the
like
Olympics,
maybe.
But even then, how many Olympic gold medalists come home and there's like hundreds, if not 1,000 people, they're throwing them on their shoulder.
Right.
I mean, it's like he's coming back from he's
like a god over there. It's like he lands. It's like unbelievable.
And I can confirm that just from the social media standpoint. It's just for the last 6-7 years, I've run social media pages across many different, bodybuilders and brands and whatnot all within the fitness industry. And just looking at that, like, always the most enthusiasm, the most you see at every event, or that you get blown up with messages, always from
them and the Brazilians.
Yeah.
The Brazilians are very passionate as well.
But which are our two biggest divisions. I mean, we have Generation Iron Persia that's run by Hassan, of course, and then we have Generation Iron Brazil that's run by Aretha in Sao Paulo. So, and you're right, that those are the two huge markets. Yeah, massive for bodybuilding.
And I think that, do you feel that the bodybuilding is growing?
Well, I think overall bodybuilding is growing because you have a lot of attention to strength training now, and to the degree.
Are you saying bodybuilding as a sport, or bodybuilding as far as a lifestyle of people getting into?
You mean as a sport, like people watch, right?
Both.
That's a good question.
I would say bodybuilding is growing. I don't know about the sport though, but that's just my thought process.
Yeah, I mean, from my opinion, from our point of view, I think bodybuilding is growing because we keep growing. I mean, obviously, we're focusing on a lot of different things, but I think bodybuilding overall has grown. And I think Chris Bumstead is a big factor of that, too. I think a lot of people are tuning into him. And I think overall, there's a lot more strength training and bodybuilding. And obviously, you could speak to that, too. But I think that it is growing to a degree.
Yeah, what I see is people who bodybuild is really growing tremendously, because the younger audience now likes to be able to show off their physique, show off their improvements, or transform. And they have control over that all around the world. Especially, I mentioned it last night when we were discussing it, the Middle East, where you don't have as many freedoms as you do here. And what ends up happening is you want to create your own destiny. And you can do that with just going to the gym. You can do that with what you're eating.
Having control over the things you can have control over.
That's right. Yeah. But your social economic situation may not be in your control because you were not born into an area or a country that has as many opportunities as we have here.
Yeah.
I mean, you come from a Russian background.
Yeah.
I come from the Iranian background. I don't know where you're from originally.
Well, born and raised in New York, Queens,
right?
New York, but my folks are from the Dominican Republic,
the DR.
Yeah,
right. And you come from
California,
California,
Austin, and Texas from California.
Yeah, but you've also seen it because it's a melting pot where you came from.
Yeah, and
so what you see is you realize that people who really appreciate it are the ones that have come culturally from somewhere else.
100%.
And when you do that, you go, wow, I have so much freedom because I can make my physique look different. I can just transform myself. And all I have to do is take a selfie and I can get that exposure and feel good about myself, about what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. And I feel that it's one of the few things that you can literally share that with the entire world with a click of a selfie.
And I would say that also the negative side of that, in my opinion, is what's causing a massive uptick in fitness in younger folks. Is I think that they're realizing that that's the one main, because obviously mental health has been getting rough just across young folks these days. And I think that now people are realizing that the gym is such an incredible source for that. So I think that that's why that age range of 16 even to 24, 25 is just, it's blowing up on TikTok and Instagram and all these categories. I think it's just access to education and information on it. And just the fact that people are realizing like, we got to do something about what social media is doing to your head. And the gym is going to be one of the best sources for that.
Well, I think that what we talk about all the time is getting rid of anxiety through training. Yep. But I also think that what you said was very powerful. You have to also not be a slave to your social media. And a lot of people are, because they see the highlight reel that everybody is creating. And we talk about it all the time. People want to show rented Lambos. They want to turn around and show off those
rented Lambos, man.
You guys, let me ask you this:
the fake flexing.
Yeah. You guys see it too, right? We're not just crazy.
Yeah, we see it.
Of
We see it
course.
all the time.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever done anything where you've either met somebody or done projects with somebody where and I don't want to put you out there, so I'm not going to tell you who, but then you're like, the guy's eating tuna, but he's driving around in a Lambo. Do you see that shit?
I've seen it a couple of times, yeah.
Yeah, you have.
Or do you deal with people, that fact that you guys are just there documenting that you guys might capture something somebody doesn't want to show?
I've seen that too, actually.
Yeah.
Somebody was not trying to show that what kind of car they drive on camera because maybe they thought, people would expect them to have something better.
Really?
Yeah.
Were they flexing in social media in the past where they said, hey, look, I like to take pictures of cars that are not mine, or that?
Not even like that. It's just, I guess the guy just didn't want to be seen as in the car.
Was it a bodybuilder?
Yeah.
You're going to slowly start trying to narrow this down.
Bodybuilder.
Male.
Has he been 10
bodybuilder?
top 10 at the Olympia? No, I don't even want to.
How many Olympias?
No Olympians, but a bodybuilder.
A bodybuilder.
And that narrows it down even more.
Professional bodybuilder.
No Olympians. No.
And I think a lot of the people out there that are doing the most amount of influencing are like that as well. I think that what you're not noticing is that you're going to, and I've talked about this in the other podcast, you're going to notice that many more people are going to gravitate towards more genuine people and authenticity, and paper money doesn't make it noise. Loose change does.
Wow, that's a strong statement right there.
I think, Hany, you get it. I mean, obviously you've been around, right, for a while.
Ouch.
No, I mean, in a
Pretty
sense,
much saying you're old.
You're loving it. You didn't even have to talk shit. You got somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. It's always usually coming to me.
I was saying to Hany yesterday, I mean, do you ever get tired of winning Olympias?
Never.
And never, right?
Never. Never.
So it's you're self-building a legacy, essentially. And, a lot of the team here at Generation Iron, they see that as well, that you've built already your legacy, and, you stand out pretty well, across not only bodybuilding, but, you've worked with The Rock, you've worked with so many different athletes over the years, even outside of bodybuilding.
Yeah, it was a short-term thing with The Rock, and it was a great part being a part of his team. I think that I have had so many different clients that have been able to give me different perspective, and I've learned from every single one of them. So whether they were in Hollywood, whether they were in the NFL, whether they were in the Olympics, whether they were in professional bodybuilding or some kind of physique division, it was great because I was able to do things that I absolutely love, because I have an obsessive compulsive personality, and I'd like to really hone in on that.
Did you have a rivalry with any other coach that you really was kind of Phil and Kai? Was a sim between you and George Farah?
Yeah, I think there was for several different reasons. And I think that with myself and George, I never spoke poorly of Kai ever, because I always respected him as an athlete. But I feel that George's style was very he liked to sometimes spit venom. And when he said to me, or just to the world, that he was going to put Phil in retirement, I was like, did you hear that? And he said that. He said that during one of the press conferences. and that he was going to do that. I felt like I took that very personally, and it was the gasoline I needed to make sure that I had to do my job to be able to make Phil the most successful bodybuilder in the world.
Yeah.
Over and over and over.
Right.
And we didn't even want them to catch one W.
So it's interesting.
But it was because of that.
Yeah.
But it was because of that.
Right. You have the
Just counting out. No.
So you have the Kai rivalry and you have the George Farah and Hany
rivalry.
Yeah. So that was a thing for a hot minute. I think that through those years, it was Kai versus Phil, myself versus George. And I felt like at the time he was going to do whatever he could to get his guy to win. And I'm going to make sure that I was going to have Phil be the absolute best and try to be the last man standing up on that stage.
And you did.
Yeah. Well,
and again, you guys can be friends.
Yeah, I think he's doing a great job with his current athletes. He did a great job with Andrew Jack. And I feel that one of the things that I've matured as I've gotten older is that I still have an edge of wanting to be competitive, but I've also I can step back a little bit, take a step back, look at everything and appreciate everything a little bit more for other divisions when these guys win. Even if they're competing against my guys, I really turn around and I go, wow, this guy looks really, really good. Where in the past, I didn't really do that as much because I was so caught up with my athletes that I didn't always give them any attention because I was always so focused. Now I can turn around and appreciate other athletes in other divisions and other competitors. And so when you see these other competitors, Hunter Labrada, Nick Walker, Blessing, Andrew Jack, you see these other athletes, even Big Ramy, whom I've been friends for a very long time. And I think he's a great guy. It's one of those things, but I will not hold back if he asks me what I think.
Yeah.
Do you hate when the athletes do coach jumping, like jumping from one coach to the other coach? Like, does that bother you?
It doesn't bother me, but it does bother me when they try to blame the coaches, because I feel like you have to figure out what you want in regards to a coach and give them the amount of time to be able to really implement a plan. A coach isn't like State Farm Insurance. They're not an insurance policy so that you can turn around and blame them when shit goes sideways.
Well, to me, it's like when somebody has only has 5 exes and only has horrible things to say about all of them. It's like, dude, there was one common factor between every single one of those situations, and it's not putting you in the best light. Right. And
I think you have to have an ultimate coach that can be able to work with you in many aspects, not just the nutrition. It could be the training. It could be the mental aspect. Somebody could have really just dialed in. Maybe there was somebody that was a better coach, wasn't as good of a coach as you had previously, that might have been really better on the nutrition side or better with the peak week side, but maybe you're going to have a better outcome because they're able to help you with your highs and lows, because you got to be able to get your mental mind straight for a high level prep like the Olympia prep. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you put enough weight into how much the mental game is part of bodybuilding, because bodybuilding is about discipline. It's about discipline. You have to, every 2 hours to 3 hours, you have to eat, you have to train, you have to get up and do cardio, and you're not going to have your coach there all the time.
Of course.
So you need to be able to have that accountability. But when you do have to turn in your pictures and you have to be able to do your check-ins, you have to sit down and say, I'm going to look at my own pictures. And many times I would sit down with my athletes and look at the pictures together on the phone same time and say, do you see this? Do you see how your body was a little bit softer, now it's a little harder, or it's about the same? Well, we're going to have to change some things. Or have you been doing everything you've been doing? You're supposed to be doing. Because if you haven't, you should be doing that. Otherwise, I'm going to make changes that are not necessary because you just weren't doing the program in its entirety. So all of those things ends up becoming it's a mental mind fuck, because you have to try to understand if that person is willing to take the information, process it, and be able to execute the plan. Because if they're not,
it's a waste of time.
It's a waste of your time and their money.
And their time too.
What about, I have one more question for you actually. I wanted to ask you. Sure. When Phil made a decision to make a comeback in 2020, right? Did you think it was a good idea or a bad idea for him to do that?
I thought it was a good idea, but I wasn't sure if he was going to be 100% ready because of the amount of weights that he was used to training with. I always felt like there was, did he have enough time? Because even though it was 2 years, he couldn't train the whole time 2 years. When Jay came back in 2009, it was back-to-back years, right? And anytime you take that extra year, and if you haven't been training or you couldn't do the whole entire prep, it becomes very cumbersome on your body because that stimulus that was originally there every year is not there. There's a huge gap. Right. So that was a big X factor because I didn't get to see him because of COVID too. And normally we spend at least a little bit of time together at the very least. And there was times where we'd spend a lot of time together because we'd see each other at expos. We'd be at FIBO. We would be at the Arnold. We would be there. We would get some training sessions. We would hang out. We would just right. He'd come to California. I'd go to Denver. But during COVID, everything was so locked down and everything was just, it felt like the world was ending. None of that got to happen. And that was the year that he also came back. Yeah. So there was a lot of X factor at that point.
And he still did amazing, obviously.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I was just wondering what you suggested him to do it, not to do it. You know?
No, I felt like he could do the show, no problem. It's just that, do you feel like as a coach, and especially me when I'm always chasing perfection, right. Would you want to give more time? Absolutely. You're always trying to go, I want to err on the side of being able to have more time or do different things. But even when Jay had come back after he got hurt, he came back, he worked with Chris Aceto. And in 2013, he had come back and he had slipped out of the top 4 or 5.
Oh, yeah.
And again, taking a couple of years off is hard. And that's one of those things that you have to figure it out. He came off of a bicep injury and Phil came off of an abdominal surgery. Yeah. So again, very, very difficult things to come back from, those types of injuries. But, to this day, I feel like when you sit down and you look at these physiques, the hardest thing is that you have to compete against yourself. They're always going to bring out prior versions of you, not just the people that are standing on your left and your right side.
That's the crazy part. I don't know how they even remember.
They don't. They pull up pictures.
Photos. Oh.
Wow. That's what the internet does. Yeah. They go, this was Phil in 2013, or this was Phil last year when he won, and this is this year, or whoever it is. They're always taking other versions of yourself. So whenever you set that bar, that's what happens. I had that conversation with Jay. I said, 2009, there you go, man. You're always going to be compared against 2009 now.
Was that his best?
Yes.
And that's when you...
Well, not just because I said I worked with him, but I like the fact that he was a bit lighter than 2001. That was his other year that he was really, really good. Right. But I felt like that he was just tighter, a little bit lighter, and I felt like his shape was accentuated because his waist was down a bit more, and he was still very, very round and very separated. But in my opinion, those are the pictures that you see the most too. And that's why I kind of go back and say, okay, what pictures do you see the most of Jay? 2009.
You did it.
Well, no, he did it. I just happened to be a part of that team. That was a great thing. That wasn't me. That was him. He killed himself for that. Like, he really went out of his comfort zone. He's
the only Mr. Olympia that came back to win it again, right?
Yes.
He is. Right?
As of right now, he is the only Olympia winner who's ever lost and won again in the open division. Wow. So we'll see. But guys, I really appreciate you guys coming out here. We're going to go ahead. We'll put the link down below to Gym Fuckery and all the other great stuff that you have. You guys have to share. And is there anything else you guys want to close off with?
Well, we appreciate, first of all, appreciate you having us. Really happy to be here. It's, Texas, again, everything is great here as well. And we're really, looking forward to Generation Iron Persia. I think people are going to get a really cool story, different story, but also, your perspective and, your background and your heritage. And I think that's going to be really exciting for the film to see, for everybody to see.
Special thank you for the barbecue last night.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And just to, because we did not mention who's in the Generation Iron Persia, can we go ahead and just mention who are the main
Absolutely.
athletes?
Absolutely. Of course, yourself now. We have Hany Chupan, Arash Rabar,
Arash,
Aptin, Mariam Rambod, and Isaac, who actually passed away.
Right.
There's a small story about him there as well. And King Kamali.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And of course, other interviews and many other people as well. But those are the ones we followed in the film.
Awesome. And when are we going to be expecting it?
It should be dropping this December, so very soon, actually.
Wow.
A couple of months.
All right.
That's
Looking
really
forward
quick.
to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, Hany, Rambod, Austin, the crew from Generation Iron, and that's the truth.